We share. Oh, take a ride with me.
Hi, my name is Didam. Didam, the voice Laah. I was born in Kaduna State, northwest Nigeria. Precisely, I was born in Tudunwada, Yusuf Nsoho Hospital, somewhere in the early 80s. I grew up partly in Rigasa and majorly in Ribadu Cantonment in the barracks, Nigeria Defense Academy. I'm the first surviving child of 5 children, meaning there were others before me who died prematurely, what they call miscarriages. My life has been a beautiful story. It has been a beautiful incident. It has been a great journey so far. A lot of pain, a lot of heartbreaks, a lot of disappointment. Anyway, I've had my share of sunshine too, so it's been great. And like most godly people would say, I just give thanks to God. But you see, growing up as a child, a whole lot happened. The experience, I would say, is nostalgic, it's mixed. I never had everything I wanted as a child. So growing up, for those who can remember Nigeria in the early 90s, when I was much younger, when I realized who I was as a young man, I had to force myself out of public education. So I always have this eye for excellence. I always want to see things done excellently. I always believe there's a place for perfection in life, even though the world would tell me it does not exist. I always believe I can have everything. I always believe I can get it 100%. But you see, life has a way of telling on us. Life has a way of teaching us what is and what is not. So, as a child, I forced myself out of a public school where most of my likes were attending, and I decided I want to attend a private primary school. It wasn't too funny for my parents, but they had to obey me. I always get what I want. That's my belief, because I would always want to work hard for it. So at age 10, I was done with primary school, and I sat for the public school secondary examination. I made it through, but I still don't want to attend a public school. So I decided to write another one, which would take me to a missionary school, precisely St. Joseph's Minor Seminary. And that means I was supposed to be a reverend father. I got through school, and I remember my first year in school. 1994, October 2nd. My dad took me to school. So we got to school. This is something I've never told anyone anyway. I went to school without books. So no exercise books, no textbooks. So I was just in class, so I had plain sheets to write with. And it was quite tough at that moment for my parents. So school fee then was 700 naira. That was a big deal. So they only managed to pay the fees, and I had to write on plain sheets. It was quite embarrassing when we get to submit schoolwork and I come with plain sheets and others submit exercise books. Then the most painful of all is when we get given assignment. Every child would write from their textbooks. I had none. Okay, I remember. I had the New General Mathematics. It was free, not for sale, government property. I had one. So I was embarrassed every day in school. Every day was an embarrassment of not having a book. As common as exercise books, I never had it. So 3 weeks down into school, my parents brought me exercise books. So I was catching up, at least copying notes and all. So I think that made me to resolve, and I had this persona as a bad guy. So I made my mates to feel like it is because I never cared, that's why I don't have books. Like I spent the money for books. So they never knew that it's because I lacked it. So everyone thought I was just this careless child that wouldn't be serious about school. But deep down, I was hurting. I was bleeding. Which unfortunately, maybe because of the color of my skin, they couldn't see through me. So I got protected. Fast forward to final years in school, so I had to resolve to a whole lot of things. So at a point, I started assisting other kids to get through homeworks and all, so I could find my way through some things in school. And as life progresses in secondary school, I had friends who would graduate and dash me the textbooks. So I started having textbooks. I remember JSS 3, I had my first textbook bought by my parents, CRS textbook. Yeah. That was the only one I got that was given to me. But you know, when we're writing our final exams, my set happens to be the first to write NECO. It was just introduced then, so. And when the exam hall, when I was picked out and I did not write 3 subjects. So till today, if you check my results, they are missing. Not because I was stubborn or I was disobedient, I had my school fee incomplete, so I've not paid the full fees. So part of the punishment to get my parents' attention is to make me not write the exams. I did not, and it affected my results, but I ensured that it did not affect me as a person. So now, I remember as a child, I always have this idea of what I see on TV. So television influenced so much of my life. So way back then, we watched kids on TV. There's this show on TV called Speak Out. We watch kids on TV, you watch Voltron and Tales by Moonlight. So when I see these kids speak in a particular way, I begin to imagine what part of the world they grew from. And I wanted to be that child. I wanted to be that outstanding child that we be different. So there was this montage on NTA that goes like, this is the network service of the NTA. I loved that. So whenever it plays, I repeat it. So I used that. I never knew I was molding my voice for something. So I always do that. So I had this love for television and radio. So it was just public radio then and public television. So when we come back from school in the evenings, there was FRCN, so we listen. Different shows, different presenters, we just stay back and we listen. It was quite interesting. I love everything. Then the guys on TV from, is it Kalu TC or something? Franco Lise, all of them. I watched them and I loved what they were doing. And I wanted to be them. So I started speaking like them. I just wanted to be them. I had no idea what it was. And when I started that, so I called my friends together. When my parents are not around, we stay back. My mom used to have this Zumunta tape. For those who grew up as Northern Christians who would understand. So it's a traditional music for Northern Christian women where they go to sing gospel music kind of in the church. So I'll take one of the tapes and we have Sony Walkman. So we click on the red button to record. So we now present our radio program, I and the Kids of My Hood. So I'll be the major presenter when I finish my program, still on the recording. They come in, everyone presents. So you hand over from one show to the other. So we kept doing it every day. When we finish, then you share the tape. You take it to your family and listen today. The other person takes it home and listen the next day. But in all of this, my parents never knew. If they're watching this today, forgive me. So I started doing all of that and I was loving it. Then I started using the mirror. So when I enter the bathroom and there's a mirror, so I speak to the guy in the mirror. And I love the echo. So there was this man I was listening to. He happens to be my boss, maybe even till today. His name is Toyin Alabi. So then he has a show on radio called Ripples. He tells beautiful stories, beautiful stories. So I'll stay every 4 p.m. and you tell stories about university life. So I envisage myself in the university. I want to have those love stories. I want to be the guy, you know. So I will stay and just listen. So I started writing my own stories, just like he does. And I also started molding my voice like him. Luckily for me, somewhere along the line, we worked together and he became my boss and I learned from him. So that's how the story goes. Then fast forward. After secondary school, late 90s, early 2000, and my parents wanted me to be a Catholic priest, Reverend Father, yeah. Okay, my friends were ordained like 10, 11 years ago. Yeah, most of them were ordained 2010. So in the year 2000, I applied to go to a seminary school. I was granted admission, and this also I'll beg my parents to forgive me. I never told them I was granted admission. So I hid the letter when it came. No one has heard this before. I got the letter and I hid it. For whatever reason, I don't know. I just was not feeling comfortable leaving my home again. With the experience I had in school, all the disappointment, the embarrassment, I don't think I can handle it again as a young man this time. So, and for those who know Catholicism and the Catholic Church and seminary, it's all dogmatic, it's all obedience, it's more of a military kind of setting. You just obey. And I was just contemplating about a whole lot of things. And so I decided not to go. So that took me some time to gain admission again. Maybe that's God's way of punishing me. So I stayed like 5 years before I gained admission into the university. So, but before then, I kind of ventured into music. Yeah, I thought I would be a rapper. So we're part of the first people to record demos in Kaduna on CD. So we go around, do some odd jobs, raise money to record songs on CD. So we did that, but I wasn't finding fulfillment even with that. So I got admission in 2004 to Bayero University in Kano. So I had a resolve going to school because my mates were already graduate. Others are already 5 years into the seminary, will soon become priests. So my only decision is I want a first class. It's either a first class or nothing. That was what I want. So I got to school, I had just to stay focused. I had to force myself to stay away from girls, from partying, from every kind of distraction. Even though I did not succeed completely, you know, I'm a young man, come on. So I met some girls in school, good ones, bad ones, and it was all good. It was all good. But I was much more closer to church. I was more of a church boy, yeah, from the class to church and back to my room. So in between that period, I was dedicated to school, and unfortunately, I couldn't finish with the first class. So I came back with something after next to first class. So I had a 2-1, second class upper. So that set aside, I decided that then banking was the main thing, you know. So I said I'll work in the bank, like every other young Nigerian. I'll work in the bank or, excuse me, or I'll work with an oil company. So I applied for Chevron and Shell, Mobil. I got invited for interviews. I went, and unfortunately, I don't have 9 A's. That's what they wanted for my WAEC. I don't know how to get that all of a sudden. So that did not work. So while I was preparing to graduate, I decided to teach. And did I tell you, I taught also, as a young man at age 17, I taught at a school, Jajere Street, Badiko, Living Spring. I taught there for like a year, yeah. So I had that experience of teaching when I was much younger. So when I was done with the university, I was waiting for posting to go serve. So I decided to teach. So I've always been this hustler guy. So I decided to teach in 3 different schools. So as a student, I missed some classes in the morning. So I just jumped into a secondary school. So I was good with phonetic inscriptions, phonetic symbols. I teach phonetics, English language, literature. So because communication was my major, so you get to study English all through and all. So I was teaching in one of the schools, in 3 schools. And one I go to in the morning, one I go to in the afternoon, the other I go teach them lessons in the evening. Then in the process of all of that, I joined some Igbo boys in Sabongeri in Kano. I started selling clothes. So I buy clothes from them on credit. I take it to school, to my fellow teachers. I sell to them. At the end of the month, they pay me. I take out my cut, then take it back to the owners of the shop at Sabongeri. So I was able to put some money together with my salary. Okay, so I lied at a point, yeah? So one of the schools never wanted to employ me because they were scared I would go to South very soon. So I lied that I wasn't Nigerian. You know, check me out. I'm a Ghanaian. That's what I told them. Forgive me if they ever get to see this, but maybe this is my moment of truth. So I told them I'm Ghanaian, so I will not serve. So they believed me because of my accent and all. Yeah, so I stayed with them. And I had to disappear when it was time to serve. I felt for them, those kids were dependent on me deeply. I don't know what became of the children, but they were so dependent on me, and I had to go. And for that, I will ask the world to forgive me. But a man's got to do what a man's got to do. So I had to move. So within that period, I was preparing to be a banker. I wanted to wear those suits, look that nice, you know. I was tired of the classroom. I wanted something different. So I bought enough jackets, shirts, ties, good shoes with the money I was able to put together. So I went to serve. So from some of my friends that I've served before, I learned that the NYSC camp has got different things. You edit, march, parade, and do different stuff. So I learned about what is called OBS, Orientation Broadcasting Service. So already I said, if life would depend on me to read, I'll read to get through. If it depend on my skills, I'll hone my skills to get through. If it depend on my discipline, I'll discipline myself to get through. So whatever is going to take me, I'm willing and ready to give. As long as I wouldn't cheat anyone and I won't steal from anyone. So I ensured I finished with good grades because that's what they told me then, that if you have good grades, you get a good job. And I was told then also that your arrival in the camp matters. So I went to camp 2 days before camp. I was that determined. So I was sleeping alone in that camp because they say for you to lead anything there, it's based on first come, first serve. So I say, okay, fine. If that's what it takes, then I'm going 2 days before any other person will come. I was sleeping in the camp. Then the camp opened and I always wanted to lead the OBS. That's what I went to do in camp. So if that does not exist, I wonder what I'll be doing there. So on the first day, I met the guy organizing and they started. And they said they were going to audition. So they auditioned us, they gave us a test to write. They finished, they called the names, my name was not there. So they asked them to resume by 5 p.m. that same day. And my name was not there. So I felt very naked. I felt so alone. What would I be doing here for 3 weeks? That's what I came to do. So I decided to join the guys that were called. My name wasn't there, but I decided to go there. I sat there with them. So they did orientation for all of us, and they asked if we have any question. I said, yeah, I do have questions. So the question was, what's the responsibility of the guy that will lead this place? What does he need to know and what does he need to do? So the man told me, okay, whoever is going to be the leader amongst you, he'll wake up first in the morning by 4 a.m., set up the place, wake other corps members up, lead parade, hand them over to soldiers, come back and run programs on the radio. Now remember, I had prior experience. Yeah? As a child, I've always been broadcasting with my friends. So I never knew that it counts, that experience would count for me someday. So when we auditioned, everyone felt I was presenting before. So they were asking me, where were you working? I've never worked before, but they never believed me till today. So I never knew that all of those things I was doing as a child was adding up to my experience in broadcasting, that I was honing my skills without knowing. So as we finished that meeting that day, and I asked the man, last question. He was angry, but later he said I should ask. He felt I was asking too much. I said, okay, fine, sir. I did not hear my name on the list. What's your name? I told him. He said, that was the first name I ticked. So it happened that the way he ticked the name looked like he ruled it out. So the question is, what if I never came? What if I gave up because my name was not on the list? That was the question I asked myself that day. So I was actually the first person. But you see, life has a way of teaching us lessons that if you don't go further, to push further for the things you say you want, it will never happen to you sometimes. So they paid us our first allowance on camp. I've always been hungry to have books. I read so many books that I could not afford. So the entire money, 9,700, I bought books that night. All of it. I haven't incurred credit. So I was owing the woman 10,000 naira because I bought books over 20,000. I paid for 9,700. At least I'm a core member now, I earned, so she believes me. So while I was serving, I was paying, offsetting. Because I needed to know a whole lot that the school did not teach me. So fast forward to that, the man appointed me as the head of OBS. That was what I came for, actually. So I taught everyone there. It was successful, beautiful. I had some special privileges. I don't queue up for anything. I don't have to wear khaki like other corps members. I have a special ID. I don't jog. I don't run. I don't parade. Soldiers don't intimidate me. It was good. Then towards the end, NYSC said they want me to work with them. So they want me to stay back in camp another time. So I had to stay back in that camp. I'm used to it already. The first time I came, I was alone. So being left alone in the camp wasn't shocking. So I stayed back. While I was there, I stayed 2-3 days. Then the next set came. I also trained them. So when I finished, NYSC insisted that I must work in the headquarters. That's the state headquarters there. I can't remember what they call it, but it was in Okelewo. And that's how it was. I got posted to NYSC office. That's the state secretariat at Okelewo. And I started working with them. First, second, third day, I felt mistreated because they did not give me anything they promised me. So because I had a little popularity in camp, the state coordinator, the camp commandant were all my friends. So I walked to the office of the state coordinator and I told him I want to leave and go to a bank. So then, the banks were not taking anyone because they wanted first class or 2-1, and most corps members never had it then. And they wanted a particular range of age. You have to be 25 or less. Some of the corps members were older than that, but I was lucky. I was just barely 24. So, and I had a 2-1. So I told the guy to give me a letter to any of the banks. So he gave me to Wema Bank. So I walked into Wema Bank and I gave them the letter. They said I should go bring my certificate, my BSc certificate. So I brought it and they saw I have a 2-1. So they were doubting. So they had to call NYSC office to confirm because most people that get letters ended up not having the certificate, like the required degree. And those who have the required degree don't have anyone to help them secure a letter to a bank. So you see, my service at the OBS that I felt was not compensated, was not actually paying off. So I had a 2-1 and I had someone who would give me a letter to the bank. So the bank absorbed me. I served there and I was paid fairly. And it was a good time. Yeah, it was a good time. And within that period, I met people. That's what I have to say, I met people. So within that period too, I decided I want to stay back at the bank. I was retained. And shortly after I was retained, I got fired because the bank could not provide the capitalization for central bank then when it was changed to, was it 25 billion or 50 billion? I can't remember again. So I was fired. So I left the bank and I decided to come back to the north. And when I came back, there was no job anywhere. So I started teaching in a school again. And within that period, that was when a particular radio station called Liberty was about starting, 2011. And I joined them and that began my new journey into broadcasting all over again. So I would say broadcasting has been a beautiful experience, but okay, I don't have time. I would need to tell you this story some other time, but long and short of the story is I served as a broadcaster. Yeah, I worked about 8 years without being paid. Who does that? I do.
No story is told if no life is touched.
No story is told if no one is transformed.
We share stories that touch light and transform your world view.
Like this, I shouted and I jumped up.
At night when you're sleeping, you start hearing strange sounds.
It was about 2 o'clock when his brother called me and said he had stopped breathing.
They would tell us in the assembly, if boys touch you, you get pregnant.
I don't know where to get the money from. I've been getting calls. I could not go to school, nothing. And I'd be like, what am I going to do? Then,
giving you direction and bringing hope. Stories from poles of experiences, real people sharing to inspire, untailored, unquoted, unexaggerated, but raw.
She has not been enjoying sex with me.
True and verifiable stories told by mortal individuals that you may learn and be inspired. Share and inspire. True stories, real people.
And so that's how the story goes. I got fired from Wema Bank. It was painful, but I had no choice, and I had to come back job hunting again to northwest Nigeria. And I came back to Kaduna. When I got to Kaduna, I had to stay without a job for like a year, and I ventured into teaching, and I taught in a school for some months. And that was inspired by a lady I met once upon a time who pushed me that I had to do something. She was my girlfriend then. And she said she wouldn't go out with me if I am jobless. So I had to take up the teaching. And I started that. And somewhere within the line, a radio station came into town called Liberty Radio. So I joined them. But before then, I remember I used to hang around KSMC once in a while and go see some of those presenters who were my friends when I'm very available. So when I joined Liberty, I was paid 3,000 naira monthly. So, and at times the money would not come. So I was teaching and working at Liberty side by side. So I go to Liberty at night when I close from school where I teach. So I pass the night at the radio station. Then in the morning, I go to the classroom and continue teaching. So I basically have just a day or two to sleep at home. I became a studio rat. So most of the nights I would be at work on radio. Then during the day I go to school to teach. Then weekends were worst for me because during weekends were the days I work at day. So weekends I work in the morning to evenings, Saturday and Sunday. So I basically had no life of my own. So during that period, I worked with Liberty, and somewhere along the line I got myself a car. And I think it became an issue. So the folks at Liberty, whoever the person was, I don't know, they felt I was earning too much, that I was earning from a school and I was earning from them. Remember, the money doesn't come at the radio station, so I got fired there too. But before then, when I knew I would be fired, so I decided to produce a set of jingles. So there's this guy, we were working together. He was a good audio producer. And the idea came to me that we should produce jingles. So I shared it with him, but he decided not to take it serious. So I go to him every day, to his house, to learn how to edit audio files. So I'll buy fuel for him to put up his generator set, and I watch him while he works. So during that period, I learned how to edit audio files with the Adobe Audio Audition or something. So I took that opportunity. When I get back home from work at night, instead of sleeping, I stay in my room. It's a studio apartment, so I'll record these jingles for the radio station. So every night I'll ensure I record like 2-3 jingles, edit them, produce them in my room. So I did like 15. I did everything that is needed to start a new radio station. Now, this radio station I was working for then, their jingles were old enough and they're due for new ones. I knew that. So I produced like 15 of them. And I proposed to be given to the owner of the station, and that is Ahmad Tijani Ramalan, Alhaji Ahmad Tijani Ramalan. So there's this guy, he's now in the US, works with Voice of America, Usman Kabara. He was my producer at a point, so I shared the idea with him. He collected the jingles and took it to the owner, and the man liked them, and he wants to buy them because there were other ones that were to be sold to him at exorbitant prices, so he preferred mine. And I learned there were other bidders, professionals who bought jingles, but I don't know, for whatever reason mine was picked. So he paid me for the jingles, and that's how I took my bow out of liberty. So I decided I would not just fall. I want to be the last man standing, even if I will fall. So I got paid and I left them, and I went back to teach in the school. So I was in that school, and I decided to teach the school's broadcasting. So I started a broadcast club in the school. So the kids would take news every morning on the assembly. It was joy to me, something I love to do. I could actually broadcast for free. It's a given, yeah. It takes me nothing to be a broadcaster. So I was teaching the kids broadcasting, newscasting. So they were presenting shows in the school. I get to teach them how to dance. So I became friends with them. I learned some of them are graduates today, and I'm happy for them. So along the line, I got a call at KSMC. So then Yakubu Lere was MD? So he called me to come work with him. I joined him. So we were working together until 2015, when there was a new government. So Yakubu Lere happens to be a friend to the then governor, Ramalan Yero. So by virtue of that, he was fired as the MD of KSMC. And in between that period, Yakubu Lere also called me that he wants me to move to Abuja to work with Vision FM in Abuja. I said, okay. I took the job. I went there, auditioned for them. They liked me. So they brought me to Abuja, offered me an apartment, and started working with them. So while I was there, I was doing a whole lot of things. So I was producing jingles, I was doing podcasts, I was doing YouTube videos, and just sending my message out there. So I've always been speaking, so I decided to take it up a little notch higher. So I will use my phone then, it was a BlackBerry phone, to record videos of myself when I speak, and I upload it on YouTube once in a while, and mostly on Facebook and all. So that was ongoing, and I became head of programs at Vision FM. As I was doing all of that, I got interested especially into news. Okay, so I cast news, but I have very little ideas at then on reporting and also news editing and news gathering. So I'll pay a visit to the newsroom every day. And that's how I honed my skill as a newscaster. And not just as a newscaster, but as a news editor and as a newsman. And while I was there was this guy that used to hang around me at the radio station at KSMC way back, Oluwaseun Fakorode. So he comes around to just stay with me in the studio. Probably he was doing nothing then. So he called me that there's this new radio station in town in Kaduna, and they want a news head, manager for news, and if I'm interested. I said, okay, I'll come give it a try. So there's something I learned, to always show up first and show up every day. And I decided to push forth my news editing and gathering skills. So I applied for the job, but I have a boss, someone I look up to, and I was talking to him. His name is Elisha Maman. So I was talking to him about coming back to Kaduna within that period. So he gave me a nod. I could give it a try. So he advised that, and that came very handy. That instead of just submitting my CV, I come down to Kaduna and have a contact with somebody. So the lady then, the HR, came to her, submitted my CV to her, and we became friends. So on the day of the interview, I happened to be the least experienced, the youngest. We had people who had served as journalists for 30 years, 35 years, retired people from different stations. I was the most inexperienced person. So I came in, and because of the relationship now, that's where relationship counts for me. She made me to be the first person to be interviewed. And I could be a klepto for interviews, so I stole the show. I got the first slot to be interviewed, and I spoke to the men there and told them some part of my story and what I could do to change the radio station. And they offered me the job and decided to pay me very well, and I liked it. So I decided I'll move into town, but I'll need to do the needful, so I resigned. The day I tendered my resignation, the people at Vision decided to double my pay and decided to offer me a car, and they want to change my apartment. and I've accepted another job in Kaduna. So I was in a dilemma. So now this is going to sound funny, yeah? I'm a Christian, so I prayed. And I fasted for 3 days. On the third day, I asked God to lead me. I always ask Him for that, direct me, give me wisdom. What should I do? While I slept that night, it might sound a bit religious, yeah? So, while I slept, I had this dream. In the dream, I was at a crossroad, and up there's the light leading green, and to my right there's a light leading red. So I woke up from sleep and I was thinking. So it dawned on me that I just had to move on, that I had a green light to go up. And I decided to come to Kaduna. So when I came, the news department at Invicta was as good as dead. And as a newsman, I remember way back, I would not watch TV. Rather, I'll go watch YouTube. So I spend my time on YouTube. I watch the likes of Larry King, Giemba Omar, I watch Aman Poor, Christine, a whole lot of these presenters on CNN, on BBC. Komla Dumo, rest in peace, the guy at BBC, yeah. I watch him too. Focus on Africa. I watch all of them. So I just wanted to be of a global standard, kind of, and I'm still hungry for that. So I would learn from them. So that was what I do every day. I would not watch TV, I would watch YouTube. So when I came as a newsman, now the tradition is that most people who edit news don't know how to cast. And those who cast don't know how to edit. They had no idea how you make news. They just sit on the table and cast. Now those who make news, they have no idea, they don't have the diction to cast. So I wanted to be an all-rounder. I wanted to be the full package. So I know how to edit news, I know how to edit my audio files, I know how to report, I know how to cast. So when I came, I decided to change the trajectory at the radio station. So I had to make music tunes for them, and I have to re-coach the team and teach them how to cast, and also how to be a presenter in all of that. So I started my own show, apart from casting news and all, which I curated alongside my team. And the good part is, what made it very successful was the fact that I work with everyone. None of my staff was left behind. So on the day that I'm not on desk, they will do it exactly as I would do it. The day I'm not available to present my program, they will do it exactly as I would do it. So that's my lesson on passing it on. So I ensure that I teach them everything I know. So they were picking up. They picked up and they're doing well. Then now the good part is, everywhere I go to work, the day I'm given appointment, I write my resignation. On that same day, I'll write and fix a date I'm going to resign. So that kept me on my toes. I know I'm living on borrowed time. So when I was in Abuja, the same thing I did. Every job I get, I just write resignation and keep. So it's not actually coincidental. It might happen like I just got a job, but it's something I had as a plan from day one. So same thing happened with the current radio station where I worked then. So I was there, and on this day I decided to step out to cover a report, and it happened to be a report of certain people called Kashmir Ibrahim Fellows. So I met with them. That was the first cohort. I met with Jemima, I met with Eyinaya Danjuma, I met with Mike, and a host of them. We spoke, had an interview with them, and I got interested. I wanted to be a part of them. And Joy was the one teaching them at Kola, somewhere in Kaduna. Now, Joy happens to be a friend of mine. We were organizing the Kaduna gubernatorial debate in 2019. We wanted to have a debate for all governorship candidates. So we were arranging all of that, though it did not happen for political reasons. So that's how I met Joy. So Joy was the one teaching them at Collab. She was teaching them digital skills and all. So when I went there, we spoke, and I liked it, but when I left there, I forgot. Until Joy got admitted as a fellow. So I saw Joy, like, she's a fellow now. Wow, okay, that's nice. I think I should give this a shot. So I told her to remind me when next is time. So she did. I applied. Now, before then, there's this misconception about me. So a whole lot of people, especially from the coffers of government, then they see me as this guy that's anti-government, like I'm against the government. So basically because I practice a different kind of journalism. I'll prefer to investigate, I'll prefer to research before I do presentations. And I talk on development issues, I don't talk politics. So I look at issues that are happening in societies, so that's what I discuss. Now, prior to that time, when I was in Abuja, I did a research and had to initiate something called Teach the Nation. Now, by Teach the Nation, it's an education support program where we gather young people. We go to public schools and teach them for free. So we appear in their school, become their teachers for a term. Any subject they are lacking, we provide them a teacher for that course, teach them for free, and we go. So when I came to Kaduna, I had that mentality of service. So when I applied for the fellowship, a whole lot happened. I had different discouragement. Nobody's gonna pick me because of my trajectory in broadcasting. So I've always been keeping some people on their toes. I always want to get certain facts. So within that period, I remember I got sanctioned. They reported me to the owners of my station to warn me, like I was trying to dig deep into some government issues. But I just felt that is journalism. People deserve to know. So I always want to dig deep, and that really put me in trouble. So I was exempted at going to certain places. I wasn't to appear where the governor is. I wasn't to appear in government house. I wasn't to appear at any event that the governor or the people were having. That was reported to my manager at the station, so they told me, that's the general manager, so he told me. And then I exempted, so I was just there. I don't go to cover reports, I don't do anything. So when I applied, I was surprised that I got picked anyway, so. And I joined the fellowship, and the experience has been superb. But you see, basically, something struck me. And that's why maybe no one knows why I do the things I do. So I have a special love for books and education because I never had them as a child. Those things I lack. I always want to have a book, but I never did. And that's why every child that is in school today, my dream is to give them a book, and I started the Kaduna Book Drive. I know what it feels like to be a child without books, especially when you want to study. So I launched Kaduna Book Drive to ensure that every child within my reach would have access to good books and have access to education, so that they wouldn't have to feel the kind of embarrassment I felt, so that they'll have a different story from what I had, so that someday, if not for anything, I'll feel like I've lived and I've made a mark in someone else's life. So that's it. I just want every child to have a book. Sorry, guys. I'm fine, I'm fine. So, my love for books drove me into launching Kaduna Book Drive. Basically, is to provide educational support services to public primary schools, to children who don't have access to books. And lately, I was going through the NBS data, that's Nigeria Bureau of Statistics data for 2021 rather, first quarter. And I learned that presently we have over 12.5 million out-of-school children. That speaks volume. That means we're providing a pool for bandits, kidnappers, and even insurgents to have a source of recruitment. And I feel I could change that. I feel I could save these children from a bad future, you know. I feel I could make a difference in that because given 20 years from today, if these kids have no access to education, whatever we think is banditry today is a joke. Whatever we think is insurgency today is a joke because we're heading into a future that's digital and we're just trying to provide books. So these kids are not educated. If that happens and sustained for the next 20 years, we're having adults who have no means of education. They are not informed by any means. That means they cannot be employed by anyone. So they'll be left to find a choice of livelihood for themselves. And just imagine what that would be and what kind of world, what kind of country we're going to be living in. You might think you can go away, fly abroad. Yeah, you can do that. I can do that too, but you would have families here. I don't want to preach, neither am I here to teach. I'm just saying. My name is Didam, Didam, the voice Laah. This is my story, and I must stick to it. Thank you.